Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all to our webinar, Participatory Ergonomics and Taking Care of Your Green Cleaning Team. We're really excited that you all could join us, and we really hope you enjoy this webinar. My name is Nicole Bowman, and I'm a Green Clean Schools Program Representative at Healthy Schools Campaign, which is the organization that's hosting today's webinar. I'd like to take a minute to make sure we thank our sponsors, our Platinum sponsor, Diversity, our gold sponsors, Ecolab, Orbio Technologies, Ecos Pro, and Unger, as well as the full list of program sponsors on our website at www.greencleanschools.org. We'll tell you a little bit more about Healthy Schools Campaign in a minute, but first I wanted to quickly review some basics for today's webinar. Today's webinar will run for approximately 1 hour, and a recording of the webinar will be available to view after today. We'll email a link to the recording, and it will also be archived on the Healthy Schools Campaign's website by the end of this week. Also, at the end of the webinar, if you could take a minute to complete a quick survey, we'd really appreciate it. We'll save 15 minutes at the end of this webinar for a question and answer session with our speakers. You can ask questions by typing a question into the questions box that is located on your control panel and clicking on the send button. Feel free to send questions through the questions box at any time during the presentation, and we'll answer them during the Q&A session at the end. Also, please note, Healthy Schools Campaign does not endorse specific cleaning technologies or manufacturers. The intention of this webinar is to present the cleaning technology and processes selected by the University of Washington for their Participatory Ergonomics program. Now, a little about Healthy Schools Campaign and our Green Clean Schools program. At Healthy Schools Campaign, we recognize the importance of providing students and staff with the opportunity to learn and work in a place that's healthy and safe. Healthy Schools Campaign is based on the simple and common sense notion that healthy students are better learners and that health and wellness should be incorporated into every aspect of the school experience. We advocate for policies and practices that support student health and school wellness. We also build the capacity of the district, schools, and communities so that change is meaningful and sustainable. At Healthy Schools Campaign, we recognize the importance of providing students and staff with the opportunity to learn and work in a place that's healthy and safe. We recognize that how schools are built and maintained contribute to a positive setting for learning and working. We recognize that an institution's approach to cleaning says a lot about how they value students and staff, the communities they're located in, the planet, and their sense of connectedness to the broader good and future generations. At Healthy Schools Campaign, we believe that green cleaning helps students stay healthy and learn, that it protects the health of custodial staff, increases the lifespan of facilities, preserves the environment, and ensures fiscal responsibility. Cleaning for health without harming the environment is the green way, and it's a system that sees continuous improvements. Next slide. We have a wonderful lineup of speakers for today's webinar: Jean Woodard, Debra Milek, and Tracey Mosier. These three dedicated experts have been working together at the University of Washington for the past 5 years to develop a truly innovative participatory ergonomics program. Now I'm just going to introduce the three of them, which will all be presenting together throughout the hour. Jean Woodard has been part of the University of Washington for 29 years and serves as the director of the Building Services Department. The UW won the Green Cleaning Award for Schools and Universities Grand Award in 2007 and 2010. Jean is a member of the Green Clean Schools Steering Committee. He's a registered executive housekeeper and member of the International Executive Housekeeping Association, ISSA, and APA. He serves as IEHA president from 2000 to 2002. He is a 2012 recipient of IEHA's William D. Joyner Achievement Award and a contributing writer for Executive Housekeeping Today and other industry magazines. He serves on the board of the Healthy Facilities Institute and is a speaker on custodial and leadership topics. Tracey Mosier is currently the safety manager for facilities at the University of Washington. She has worked at the university in various health and safety positions for 28 years and is a certified industrial hygienist. Debra Milek is Associate Professor in General Internal Medicine at the University of Washington. She is a board-certified occupational medicine physician with more than 25 years of experience in diagnosis, treatment, and prevention of work-related injuries. She has been the medical director of several occupational health clinics and the director of occupational medicine residency trainings during her career. She began collaboration with UW Facilities Services in 2014 with the Participatory Ergonomics pilot program, which is now a mainstay of the department and has expanded into other areas impacting custodian health. So now I'm going to let these three experts take it away.
Thank you, Nicole. It's really a pleasure for us to be invited to talk about our Participatory Ergonomics program to this wonderful group. We'll start with our definition of ergonomics, which is adapting the work or tools to the people who perform the work because body sizes, shapes, and abilities differ. Next slide, please. This is an example that we borrowed from Unger to demonstrate that maybe one size doesn't fit all. Next slide, please. Within UW facilities, we found that the most common injuries causing musculoskeletal pain occurred in the shoulders, the back, and the knees. Next slide, please. 60% of the injuries resulting in time loss at the university were due to stress on the body caused by lifting, carrying, pushing, pulling, reaching, twisting, throwing, and repetitive motion. It sounds like the job description of a custodian, as far as I can see. Next slide, please.
I'd like to give you a little background about the custodial team at the University of Washington. They provide cleaning and services to all the academic and research spaces on campus. We've had a staffing shortage up until recently. It's been difficult to hire people in the Seattle job market. So custodians are very productive, 48,000 square feet per custodian, but we emphasize safety over productivity and speed at all times. English is often our second and third language spoken by our custodial team, and we've improved our absenteeism rate to 14% from around 20%. This still means that custodians have to cover for their absent colleagues to ensure that those spaces are serviced as well. And part of the reason why our staff is so engaged is because they're a part of the campus community. They perform their work from 5 a.m. to 1:30 p.m., the bulk of the cleaning. And we do have project crews and smaller crews on the swing shift and overnight. Next, please. We approached our participatory ergonomic program with some concepts in mind and some things we wanted to have as our driving factors in how we approach this. We know that custodians have a high injury rate. As Debra mentioned, the job description involves a lot of bending, twisting, reaching, a lot of repetitive motions. Discomfort is a predictor of future injury. The custodians performing the work know their job better than anyone else, and participation within all levels of the department, plus involving outside expertise, will be our strategic approach. And we wanted to identify and change tasks that cause discomfort to help us reduce custodial injuries. And I want to point out our program is scalable to any size school, university, hospital, but these are the basic concepts that we employ. And it can be implemented by almost any type of workforce. We're expanding into our grounds crew, working with them in the near future. Next, please. So the entire idea of our preventative principles is to address the discomfort early on. There's a scale here which exposure to hazards, the warning signs, occasional discomfort, and eventually that leads to frequent pain. We wanted to focus on addressing issues at the earliest stage. If someone notices feeling different after performing a task for 10, 15 times, and it gets a little bit more discomfort when they perform it 50 times, eventually when they perform it that 100th time or that 200th time, they've developed an injury. Next.
So one of the things that we wanted to look at was the impact of training on discomfort. And there was a survey done by Liberty Mutual that looked at people that just had minimal training for a task, and then also those that had ergonomics training included in the training for the task. And as you can see, the reports of symptoms were much higher for the bars in red, those minimally trained people, than for those that had received the ergonomics training. And I think this does a really nice job of showing the impact using ergonomics training has on decreasing symptom reports. Next slide, please.
Here at the University of Washington in Building Services, we've been practicing a process improvement, a form of lean, for about 7 years. And when we embarked on that program, we knew we had to have a different frame of mind in how we lead. We no longer wanted to be a top-down organization, but we wanted to be a bottom-up and more inclusive. So the principles that we landed on are from the John Huntsman Business School at Utah State, are respect everyone. That's respect every custodian, respect the jobs that we have, and that every interaction that you have with someone counts. We wanted to lead with humility, and this for us means that we can learn from anyone at any time, and that we needed to understand that the people doing the work had the better ideas because they were doing the work all the time. In constancy of purpose, we initially focused on why we're here, how are we supporting the mission of the University of Washington, its teaching and research and public service. We provide a clean environment so those activities can be completed successfully. But here lately, we started to really focus on the purpose. What purpose our employees have? Why are they coming to work? Is it to support their families? Is it to provide more upward mobility for themselves? So we really started focusing on connecting with our people. Next slide, please.
So when we did our survey to identify our custodial tasks, what we had our custodians do was identify the tasks that they thought were producing the most discomfort. And then we had photographs taken of that task being performed, the different steps of it. We assembled into small groups of experts to create modifications to the tasks that we selected. I believe we picked the top 4 tasks to take a look at, how could we alter those to reduce discomfort.
And the experts also included the custodians themselves.
Yes. Yes, those small groups were made up of custodians, supervisors, safety staff, Dr. Milek, and an ergonomist. And so all of these people would get together and review a task, really getting that input from the custodial staff about what would work, what wouldn't. Obviously we went through lots of ideas that we discarded with their input.
Mm-hmm. We also had the managers participate in the small groups as well.
Yes. So trying to get all levels of the organization involved in the process, which was really important. We trained people and implemented those changes, and then we conducted a post-modification survey to find out, what level of discomfort had dropped, or had we, inadvertently created problems elsewhere. And then we had pre and post risk assessments done. We did REBA scores for the tasks and scored them to see how the ergonomic risk had changed for the task.
So approximately 166 custodians participated in the survey. And as Tracey mentioned, it was a pictorial survey and pictures of the task being performed. And there was a Likert scale, so a custodian could indicate whether that task caused discomfort and to the degree of the discomfort. And then they can also indicate on a diagram of a human body just where that discomfort occurred. Next slide, please.
So some of the demographic information regarding our survey was that 60% of the custodians took the survey. 35% felt most relaxed listening to questions in their first language. Most were between 5 foot and 5'5" tall, which is on the shorter side. The age range averaged between 40 and 69 years on average, with a peak between 50 and 59, which represents an older population, much like that of the rest of the country. The job longevity of our custodians was on average 11 to 20 years, which is a pretty stable workforce. Next slide, please. Our survey results indicated that, similar to what we saw in the workers' compensation for the entire university, that the areas most affected were the back, the shoulders, and the knees in our custodians. Next slide, please.
So the number one task that caused the most discomfort and the most severe discomfort was backpack vacuuming. And we realized as we started exploring how to address the discomfort that it was pretty complex issues involved. We, the leadership of the department, greatly underestimated the need for extensive hands-on training when we first introduced the backpack. We discovered that custodians were not properly fixing the harness and adjusting the harness or even putting it on properly. They leave straps undone. We did not train people to really fit the harness to themselves. We realized that a lot of the harnesses were not as the most recent ergonomic models, so we invested in new harnesses.
People were also sharing backpacks as well, people who were different sizes and tying knots which would only fit one of the parties. And I want to say, Jean, that this is not unique to the university. Having worked in an occupational medicine clinic, I've seen this from other industries as well. So this is a very common issue with this particular piece of equipment.
Yes. What we did was we had the manufacturers come out and demonstrate the backpacks to a group of custodians, 12 to 30 custodians at a time. And then a week later, those custodians got their backpack in a box and were expected to remember what they just saw. And that just was not effective, and we didn't follow up. So this was a great discovery for our department. We changed policies where everyone now has their own backpack so that we're no longer sharing backpacks. That was a minor investment for the department. And we're reinforcing the training annually, where we make sure that people bring their backpack in and we watch them demonstrate how to fit it and how to put it on. Next slide, please. We also, another task that created a high degree of discomfort was scraping floors. It doesn't occur everywhere every day, but it did rise to the top. And as you can see here, in the before picture, a custodian is bending over, scraping grime off of a lab floor. And then we found an ergonomic handle with the proper grips where he doesn't have to make that bend, and it's still effective in removing the grime. Next slide.
And it's size adjustable as well.
Yes, size adjustable. A task that we're still working on, we haven't completely resolved this, but we have made some improvements, is cleaning toilets. we've just learned that there's only one length industrial size toilet brush, and that's about 12 inches. So we scoured the earth looking for adjustable toilet bowl brushes that industrial strength. Finally we discovered through Unger a longer length brush of 24 inches, but it's a thicker brush, so it created other issues for smaller size people. And as noted earlier, we have primarily a shorter staff. So the longer brush did help with the taller people, but the shorter people, it created other issues with their wrists and shoulders. So we're still working on this. We've made recommendations to Unger for some adjustable size or adjustable toilet brush handles, and we've recommended the angle of the brush and the grip and the side, the circumference of the handle, and we're just anxiously waiting to see the next prototype of that. Next slide, please. Another task that created discomfort was picking up trash in our auditoriums. As you can see in the before picture, someone's bending over to pick up debris. We provided grippers, 5 different types of grippers where the custodian could select the one that best fits them and best fits their finger strip and how they want to squeeze the handle. And those are provided to our staff, 5 different sizes and lengths. Next slide, please.
So the question we asked ourselves after all of these, changes in tasks was, did we reduce discomfort? Next slide, please. So our pre and post survey information is shown on these graphs. As you can see in the first graph, the vacuum backpack, in light pink, you can see the reports of discomfort in the various body parts in the pre-survey, with the back and shoulders being the areas most greatly impacted for the backpack vacuum. In the darker red, that's the post intervention survey, and you can see we had some pretty dramatic improvements, almost 20% for discomfort in the back, and also about 10% for discomfort in the shoulders. Overall, we saw a pretty dramatic reduction in discomfort across the other body parts in total as well.
I'd like to add a point that I didn't mention previously. When we pointed out to Protein, the company, the manufacturer of the backpack vacuums that we use here, that backpack vacuuming was the #1 discomforting causing task, that we arranged with them 3-day training, and they sent out 3 people and spent 3 days training all 240 plus custodians.
And I just want to add that in our survey, we actually took the 14 or 16 tasks that custodians did most frequently, including those that we didn't think were a problem, which was very fortunate because we found out through the survey that the backpack vacuum was in fact a source of discomfort and actually rose to the top as a source of discomfort. So that was really, really useful information, and we're happy we did the design that way.
So for picking up garbage, our pre-survey indicated the back and knees were the areas of most discomfort with the pre-intervention. And then post-modification, you can see that dramatic drop again, over 10% improvement for reports of discomfort in the back. And then the knees, there were no reports of discomfort in the post-modification survey. So overall, we saw, almost a 15-20% improvement here on the picking up garbage task. So that was a great outcome. Next slide, please. For our cleaning toilets, the areas of most discomfort pre-modification were the back and knees, done in that's shown in the light green. And then in the dark green, you can see post-modification where we had that slightly longer handled toilet brush, and again, a decrease in discomfort for the back, and again, the knees, no discomfort reported on the post-modification survey. So, saw some improvements there as well. With the floor scraping activity, back and knees were indicated as the highest areas of discomfort pre-modification. And then after we got the tools with the better ergonomic grip and giving the employee the opportunity to stand up rather than squat down or kneel, the reduction in discomfort for the back and knees was again very significant. So again, we saw really great results from making these modifications. Next slide.
So some of the lessons learned, the tasks were more complex than what's apparent, and I think Jean's discussion on the vacuum backpacks really illustrates that. And without asking the question, you actually don't know the answer. So we think it's very important to have worker input, their observations, and their participation in this process. And of course, we realize that change is a process, and it's a slow process, and there really needs to be a lot of communication in both directions, and that planning and follow-up are very important to this process. It really is a building of relationships for this to be successful. And we found that the worker must demonstrate the newly learned information. What we found, since we trained every custodian individually on all of these new tasks and tools that we introduced, we found that almost no one learned by watching. People had to take the tool in their own hands and use it and be guided on the proper way of performing the activity. And we also noted that we needed to be careful not to introduce new musculoskeletal problems, which, as Jean mentioned previously, we did notice that with our longer and heavier toilet brushes, those were not as helpful for the shorter custodian as the taller custodian. So, it's always a process of reassessing what you've done, and that takes the communication that we just mentioned. Next slide, please. And other important reminders include supervisors need the same training as custodians. In order to be able to supervise someone successfully, you need to know how to do the job properly yourself if you're a supervisor. And because change doesn't happen overnight, reinforcement of new information is vital. And I'll give an example of that on one of the later slides. But a health and safety culture is essential for success. It really needs to be the way we do things. The safe and healthy way is what should be the norm. Worker and management engagement is crucial. Without Jean's leadership and integral involvement in this process, I don't think we would have been successful. And leadership needs to be engaged at each of the levels, from the top and all the way through. Our findings were not really unique to UW custodial work, and most of our interventions, fortunately, were not costly. Next slide, please.
So we're continuing this process within the UW facilities group. We are conducting weekly participatory meetings, and present at that meeting is Jean Woodard, who's the director of the department. And as Debra mentioned, that is really a critical element to making this project work right. That really sends the message that, the leader of this department is interested and feels that this is an important process to be working on. It also helps our ergonomic safety culture mature.
Why don't you mention who's at our weekly meeting?
Yes, thank
Other
you.
than Jean.
Yeah, it's not just Jean in a room. Yes. So at those weekly participatory meetings, we have custodians, and one of the efforts that is made is to make sure every custodian in the department has an opportunity to participate in these weekly meetings. We feel that that's really important, that they feel like they're part of this process and they have a chance to speak about things that are important to them. We also have managers and supervisors present, as well as the assistant directors and the safety staff person for the building services department, as well as myself, and Dr. Milek is also there. So we have a really good group of people that get together weekly, and we continue to talk about issues and safety concerns that come up. We are continuing with tool evaluation surveys, so when we implement a new tool for people to try out, one of the really important things is to get feedback on how well that tool worked or what didn't work about it. And so we're continuing with that so that we make sure we're capturing the input of the people that are using the tools. We have completed 30 additional tasks from the survey and beyond. And the distribution and installation of many of these, new tools are continuing. Next slide.
So, as Tracey mentioned, we have continued to look at other tasks that custodians have indicated to us that it created discomfort. This photo shows some of the things that we've implemented. I'll just talk about a couple of them that really made a significant impact. The upper left shows a dumpster prop where custodians could use this tool without lifting over or raising their hand over their shoulder to get the lid open, and it holds the lid open so that they can now empty the trash, compost, recycle, whatever that material is, with two hands versus a one-hand toss. We want to eliminate the one-hand toss. The picture in the upper middle is a extendable we call it a surface wiper that we discovered, microfiber tool. This has really helped. We have well over 1,000 whiteboards that we were cleaning by hand and just swinging from side to side, trying to get the top of those boards. We introduced this tool, which is extendable and can reach high surfaces. And we had to make sure when we trained them that we trained them to keep their hands below their shoulders, that they didn't have to reach their hands above their shoulders.
It's also useful for table surfaces, and the custodians feel that this cuts their work in half dramatically.
Yes, that the tool at the head of the dust mop, you can actually separate it from the handle, and it's a ball grip that you can use to keep a neutral wrist position as you clean tabletops and other surfaces. The picture of restroom partitions, the lower picture shows some magnets. When we were evaluating our custodians cleaning toilets and observing them, we noticed that custodians were shifting their hips to the left or to the right to hold this door open. So they were in a very awkward position in addition to bending. Their hips were extending out pretty far in one direction. So after some study, we arrived at a solution of putting magnets on the partition doors to prevent that bending. And the custodians knew that we were installing these, saw that they were installed, and still it would take them weeks to break the habit of shifting to the left because they had done it so many times before.
Yes, even though this holds the door open for the custodian, the change process was really slow to come, and actually there are people that it took well over a month of this new process to, even though it made their lives so much easier, it made the work so much more ergonomic and safe. It took a long time to unlearn the old habit.
Next slide, please.
So apart from the 30 additional modifications in processes, where are we today? What we have found is our custodians are increasingly engaged in, providing solutions, offering up ideas on how their work can be done more safely, and that's even outside of the area of ergonomics. Now they feel that they can bring up all of these concerns and get resolution because they've seen that this process with ergonomics has been so helpful. We've been practicing what we preached, that we are going to be doing, looking at these ergonomics and ergonomic issues and trying to make improvements.
I think a better way to say that is we're doing what we say we're doing. We walk the talk so that custodians know that they've been heard and we're taking action on what they've told us is important.
Yeah. So custodians and supervisors' awareness of injury prevention has dramatically increased. Our custodians are teaching each other, which is wonderful to observe, where they're intervening on each other's behalf and reminding each other how to correctly perform tasks. Making sure, the backpack harness isn't adjusted correctly and helping their coworkers. We've expanded beyond traditional ergonomics, as I mentioned, into other safety items, providing some flashlights as our employees, do arrive early, as Jean mentioned. Their shift starts at 5 in the morning, so flashlights to help them safely traverse. We've provided lights so that they are easily visible. So other vehicles, bicycles, cars on campus can see them as they're, traversing the campus. We also are watching our hiring, making sure, that we're filling empty positions as quickly as possible. Also managing our open runs and watching that number. We've done what's known as a 5S closet organization, so that when a custodian goes to a different area to do work, that the closet is organized in a similar way, so they're not spending a lot of time hunting around and trying to figure out where stuff is. And then also, as mentioned before, the attendance at those weekly ergonomics meetings. Next slide, please. So most ergonomic efforts have targeted reductions in the areas that we talked about, that backpack vacuum, improving the reports of discomfort in the back and shoulder, the scrapers showing, improvement with the back and knees, the long-handled toilet brush, definitely improving the back, but again, as Jean mentioned, for some of those shorter staff members, creating a different problem in the upper extremities, the shoulder and the wrist. The grabbers improved the backpack and knee. Those magnets that we installed in the bathroom, we saw improvement in discomfort in the back. Our dumpster prop, shoulder and back discomfort was reduced. And then with that surface wiper, again, shoulder and back discomfort reduced. So, great responses or results from those modifications. Next slide, please.
As we continued the Participatory Ergonomics and Safety program, we presented the results of the surveys to the custodians. And next slide, please. We asked the custodians, in addition to what they've heard, what they need from management and each other to do their job safely. And the answers most commonly given to us were respect from managers and from each other, communication, again, managers and each other, appreciation, thanks, acknowledgement, teamwork was important, and don't steal my stuff was also a frequent response. And that has to do with, as Tracey mentioned, the open runs, when a custodian takes over someone else's run for the day, if they happen to be absent, that people return to their closets the way they left it. And so that has to do, that actually helped us emphasize the 5S closet organization, because we realized that this was important for people to do their job in a safe manner. Next slide, please. So advancing our participatory ergonomics program, since we've been in this activity for 5 years nearly, we are stepping it up beyond tools and training. Next slide, please.
So one of the things we did was expand the definition of ergonomics, and this expanded definition is the applied science of fitting tools and tasks to the persons performing them in such a way that the strength of the human body and psychology are maximized and exposure of weaknesses to stressors is minimized. Next slide, please. One of the pieces of information that we collected was our incident rate for building services, and the takeaway for this is, that we have achieved our lowest incident rate for building services of a 6.9 in 2018. Next slide, please.
Well, before we get to that, Jean.
Yes, one a more important statistic for us is that we reduced our ergonomic injuries over the last 3 years. In 2016, we had 17. In 2017, we had 21. And in 2016, we had 27. 2017, we had 21. 2018, we had 13. So we're trending in the right direction. And we think that this participatory ergonomic program is influencing that trend.
So our initial desirable ergonomic criteria was that it doesn't decrease productivity or capability. It doesn't create new problems, whatever new tools or processes we introduce. It doesn't have an unworkable cost-benefit ratio, doesn't displace the worker, and doesn't decrease comfort, safety, or health. Now that we have stepped up our ergonomics program, we now want our desirable ergonomic criteria to actually increase comfort, safety, and or health. Next slide, please.
So some specific tools and tasks that we're working on in the currently and into the future are, as I mentioned, the redesign of the toilet brush. We're looking at various options, and we're engaging students here on campus to design a way to prevent liquid waste from going into trash, compost, and recycle, which makes that waste heavier. We're looking at a new device that actually lifts containers, barrels of trash into the dumpster without any lifting. And for the first time in many years, we had real snow in Seattle, 2 weeks of snow, and we learned quite a bit about how unprepared we were. So we've since gotten ergonomic shovels and ice scrapers and shoe grippers, etc. Next.
So some of the issues and challenges that we face, aging workers may have years of wear and tear, and their repair mechanisms are not as young as they used to be. Without proper ergonomic training, younger workers may experience wear and tear at an earlier age, and both have mistaken beliefs to overcome. The younger workers think they're invincible and won't be injured, and older workers think it's too late. Neither of these are true. They're both myths, and that's why that continuum that we showed earlier to prevent injury to prevent discomfort from going on to injury is really important, because we believe we can stop this process from its natural history if left as it is. Next slide, please. So in conclusion, we feel that the Participatory Ergonomics program has really expanded to include safety issues as well, and really has improved our safety culture. It's a collaborative effort between custodians, management, and health and safety. And our program has really resulted in greater engagement of the workers, decreasing our ergonomic injury rates, And we're actually getting important recognition from within and outside our institution on the work that we're doing. But sustaining the gains requires ongoing maintenance and innovation. However, we feel that healthy buildings require healthy workers. And I think our facets of leadership and follow-up and collaboration and innovation are really what has sustained and moved our program forward. Thank you. I think we'll take questions now.
Next slide.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all so much. We have some great questions. I'd like to try to get to them. The first question is from David, and he asked, did you find any areas of discomfort for applying chemical solutions through spray bottles, like wrist or forearm discomfort, or the bending over and stretching to wipe, to clean or sanitize or disinfect?
I would say we have been working on finding a new mopping system because of that very issue of spraying. The squeeze bottle, for instance, has been a source of hand and wrist discomfort. So we are in the process of looking at a number of different systems that both address the various facets of mopping, one of which is the squeeze bottle.
Yeah, we use a twist and fill, and so we're looking at other brands where, and there's microfiber flat mops, obviously, with the reservoir of solution on the handle. So we're looking at other ways to dispense that product. We have not heard, it hasn't risen to our attention any discomfort with the spray bottle, but we have tried to address the bending with the various lengths of toilet brushes.
Right, we're always trying to minimize using the thumb as a trigger and trying to use, the entire hand for releasing spray. But we also impart education to the custodians and they to us as well. But we have told them that it's important to decrease the bending unnecessarily. And so one of the custodians has come up with a little device, doorstop basically, which she's put a string on the end of it to hold the door open. And she actually does not have to bend down to do this. And we're actually asking our custodians to calculate how many bends a day this avoids. So we're really cognizant of the issues of, poor ergonomics and trying to address those in as many ways as possible.
Great, thank you. We have another question here from Jessica, and she was wondering if you have any information on your absentee rates each week for your staff.
Yes, we track our absenteeism rate. For each of our work areas, we have 7 geographical work areas, and every manager tracks that. We do have minimum staffing requirements for how many people we can allow on vacation, because we always have a few of the call-ins as people get sick. And then FMLA is another big factor. So we track that. We have a graph that's posted in our conference room where we have our meetings, and we review that updated on a monthly basis. And
we discuss it on a weekly basis. And it's updated on a monthly basis. So we review the number of vacancies in each work area, the number of people on long-term FMLA, and those are the 2 primary drivers for our absenteeism rate that we track. And we also look at the number of open runs, working toward reducing those. So all of that is on the wall in the room where we meet for our participatory ergonomics meeting, and we discuss this weekly.
So we're being very transparent to our custodians on just what the staffing are. It's a really big concern of theirs how many times a week they're doing open runs, and our goal is to have that be just one time a week. They said that with one time a week they can provide the quality of work in their area and not feel that they're not able to do as good a job.
Jean, could you mention quality of work in terms of recognition of custodians?
Yes. We have a tremendous staff. I'm really proud of them. This year, the university has a Distinguished Staff Award program each year, and this year we have 13 custodians nominated by the customers in the buildings that they serve for this particular award, and one custodian team was nominated as well.
This is out of the entire University of Washington, so this is really quite an accomplishment and demonstrates to us that this kind of program does not impact the quality of work in a negative way. In fact, it makes it a more positive outcome.
Absolutely. And in fact,
Great.
We had another team in the undergraduate school. I'm going to a recognition event next Tuesday with one of our teams. They were selected as a distinguished partner for the undergraduate school, which is the first time ever we've had something like that.
That's great. We have another question here from Virginia who has concerns about working with a contractor and was wondering if you have any advice about if school districts can survey custodians hired through contractors. And also she's concerned about handling disinfectants safely and, working with the language barrier of some of the custodians.
So in terms of working with a contractor, and I don't know what state that person is from, but here in the state of Washington, we're very careful that we share information about how we do things, but we're not directive. They need to, give guidance to their employees as the employer. So you do want to be careful about that. But there's absolutely no reason, that the kinds of things we're sharing today can't be shared with contractors. When you go through your contract writing process, you can certainly include some performance metrics that would lead them to doing these kinds of activities. So that's all possible. I hope that answered that element of the question.
And for our disinfectants, we dispense a product in an enclosed system that proportions accurately. It's foolproof, and it's a green seal certified product. All the products that our custodians use on a daily basis in a spray bottle are green seal certified. And we've also have one area that is using an on-site generator product, which is basically a sanitizer that's made from salt and water. And so we're also taking a look at how to reduce any adverse exposure to disinfectants. Great. And the language barrier part, if I can just add, we
Sure.
do provide English in the workplace classes. We've been providing this for about 18 years now. We've had well over 150 custodians take 2 to 3 courses. They're college credit courses. This is release time, so they go to class once a week. We've also expanded that into computer training, and it's really been rewarding to see people gain confidence to be able to bring up issues in meetings where before they might have been hesitant because of their concerns with expressing themselves effectively. So that has been part of our program for quite a while.
Great. And now I want to make sure we wrap up within the hour. There was one very quick question, I think, from David again, which was about a backpack perspective. If you had a weight requirement you were trying to stay under, or depending on the weight, do you provide extra support?
We attempt to get the lightest backpack possible, and we really look at the harness design. During the training, we learned a lot about emptying the bag before it gets full and how to put it on. We've developed some shelves in some closets where custodians don't have to bend down. We've also expanded our fleet of vacuums to backpack cordless vacuums. And weight is a factor because the batteries in those are somewhat heavier. So we're really examining that. We haven't set a limit or a criteria, but we're really looking at the lightest. And when the custodians evaluate that, we let them tell us if they think it's too heavy or not.
Thank you. There are a few more questions. So what I can do is make sure that we can get answers to those questions by connecting people who are on this webinar with some of our speakers, because there's some more really great questions. But I want to thank everybody so much for their time and for this really engaging presentation on a topic that's of a lot of interest and is very impactful for green cleaning programs. So thank you all very much. You will be getting an email. Yes, thank you. And you'll all be getting an email from us with a link to the archived webinar, a survey, and I'll make sure to get everybody connected so they can ask the rest of their questions, because there are some really great questions here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.